Hey guys, this is Dave, and today we are going to be taking a look at this. This is the new Pula Unicrom. Of course, I just released the review of the K-Fine Quatio, and I had stated in my opening that besides the Jazeer Defiant, there haven't really been too many exciting releases around this $100 price point lately, at least of the sets that I've actually heard. And while I felt like the Quatio was a pretty competent set, it still left me wanting just a little bit more. So now we have the Pula Unicrom, and I guess I would pose the same question I posed with the Quatio. Does this bring anything new or exciting to the table? Well, that's the question I'm going to try and answer in today's video. Plus, I'm also going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to be giving away 2 pairs of this, the Pula Unicrom, to 2 lucky winners. So stay tuned for details on how you can enter to win. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. So first, I want to give HiFiGo a huge shout out for sponsoring this video. I'm actually pretty excited about this video because I'm giving away, again, a brand new pair of Pula Unicroms to 2 lucky subscribers. And all you have to do in order to enter for a chance to win is hit the subscribe button, and also, if you could please comment on this video. And then about 10 days from today, I will announce the lucky winners in the community tab. And then for everybody else, there's also another way to save money on the Unicrom by taking advantage of the $10 early bird discount going on right now through August 17th. And speaking of discounts, HiFiGo is also having their back to school sale starting August 18th, and it's going to be running through August 28th. And you'll find some pretty significant savings on some of my favorite IMs, like the K-Fine Delcy AE, the AFU Explorer Performer 5+2, the Jazeer 61T and 81T, Soft Ears Volume S, and more. So if you are looking to expand your collection and trying to save a little money at the same time, of course, these are the kinds of sales you want to try and take advantage of. So this is everything that comes with the Unicrom. Again, it's priced at $79 unless you take advantage of the early bird discount, of course. Then it's going to be $69. And as you can see, it's pretty nicely accessorized. This uses a single 10mm beryllium plated dynamic driver, and the driver is housed in a pretty typical resin shell. But what's not typical, at least at this price point, is the use of stabilized wood for the faceplates. And I chose this yellowish light wood color because I thought it looked really pretty, and I just wanted something, I guess, a little lighter and brighter. And I'm glad I chose this one because it is really unique and it's just really beautiful, especially in person. Fit and comfort are also good. The shell is a little on the smaller side of medium, so my guess is it should fit most ears perfectly fine. It fits my ears perfectly, and I had no issues with stability or discomfort at all. The cable is also very nice, and it seems to be pretty well constructed for this price point. It's modular, so it has both a 3.5 and 4.4 swappable termination. But what I really like about the cable is how manageable it is, because it's exceptionally soft for this price point, and it has very little memory, so it's very easy to just roll up and throw in the case. So the build quality and design of both the cable and IEMs is great. Fit and comfort are good, and it's decently accessorized. But how does it sound? Well, let's talk about that. Okay, so in terms of its general tuning, this is what I would consider to be kind of a mild V shape. But I don't know that I would call it mid forward necessarily, because while it certainly does have good vocal energy, the upper mids stay in check and they don't seem to be completely overpowering the rest of its tuning. And I actually feel like this is a pretty balanced set overall. And for this being a V-shaped set, I have to say it's surprisingly natural sounding. I don't know if it's as natural sounding as the Delcy or Delcy AE, but it is still quite nice. Now, if we do kind of a sound breakdown, starting with the bass, as far as bass energy, this is what I would consider to be above neutral. And to my ears, it seems to be a little more, I guess, mid-bass focused. And while I would say its extension is pretty good, and those sub-bass frequencies do seem to come through pretty nicely, I feel like my attention is maybe still being drawn a little, or pulled a little more towards the mid bass and low mids. So again, there is pretty significant amounts of sub bass rumble, but there seems to be just a little bit of a focus on mid bass and low mids. So you've got a little extra kick impact and then some warmth in the low mids as well. And as far as my preferences, I would have liked to hear a little more sub bass if I'm being picky, but it is sufficient. As for overall bass quality, dynamics, bass speed, bass texture, bass separation, I would say it's pretty good given its price point. I did notice some bass bleed, and yes, again, we are talking about a sub $100 IEM, and I know there are sets like, again, the Delcy AE, and even the Quatio that also have some warmth, but they do offer a little more texture, tactility, control, and separation. And I just feel like, while again, it's good and certainly acceptable for this price point, I was hoping to maybe get just a little bit more. Now, what you might consider to be a good trade-off is the added richness and the note weight with male vocals and some instruments. So if you like a little warmth in your presentation, which I do sometimes, then I do think this set does that pretty well. I don't think it's overly warm or overly thick sounding, but it's just enough to add, again, a little bit of richness and weight to its presentation. Now, as far as its mid-range presentation, as I said, I am picking up on a little bit of bass bleed, and it does seem to be encroaching on the mids and affecting mid-range detail. However, for this price point, and look, I know I keep referring to its price point, but the reason I do is because I think it's important to temper your expectations when trying to assess the tuning and some of the technical capabilities of IEMs in this price range, because these are issues that even some of the best IEMs in this price range that I have, even my favorite sub $100 IEM, the Delcy AE, has some issues with that. So we do have a little bass bleed with the Unicrom. However, it doesn't wash all of the detail out. There is still some detail, and it's certainly adequate for this price range. And it does have good vocal clarity because you do have a little extra energy in the upper mid-range, or that ear gain region. And as I said earlier, while it does have good vocal energy, I don't know that I would call this a mid-centric set necessarily. It's also pretty natural sounding, so I'm not picking up on any weird timbre issues. So I think they did a pretty good job with the tuning curve, I guess, in the upper mids, although I do still like the approach they took with the Delcy and Delcy AE just a little bit more. But overall, I think they did a good job with the tuning of the upper mid-range of the Unicrom. As for the treble, now this is where I had a little bit of an issue with the Quatio, because I felt it was lacking in treble energy, but they had done such a great job with the rest of its tuning, so it was a little bit disappointing. But I think the Unicrom does a little better because it does bring a little more treble energy into its presentation, or at least upper treble, because the Quatio does have some lower treble energy, but the Unicrom brings more upper treble energy. And while the Quatio does sound pretty smooth and natural up top, I think I like the Unicrom a little bit more because it still sounds pretty natural, but again, it also brings some airiness and some of those micro details into its presentation as well. Now, as far as technicalities, they're okay. They are about as good as you can expect at this price range, and as good as most other IEMs within this price range, which is, again, it's not great, but it's certainly acceptable for this price point. So The soundstage is, I guess, probably about average with instrument layering, is pretty good. Its forward presentation is what I would consider to be pretty shallow though, as again, most other budget IEMs are, and detail levels are pretty good, probably as good as the Dell CAE. And I guess I can use that to kind of segue into comparisons. Of course, I have some of my favorites on my desk here. Unfortunately, I do not have the Dell CAE on hand at the moment, but that is currently my favorite IEM under $100 right now. And that does not change at all. It's still my favorite because it brings a little more bass and it does relax those upper mids a little bit as well. So the upper mids sound a little more natural to me, and that added bass and sub bass brings the Dell CAE again just a little closer to my preference. And same goes for the original Dell C. It brings a little more bass and sub bass. It relaxes those upper mids, sounds a little more natural, and it just comes closer to my tuning preference. Now compared with the Explorer, its tuning is quite different from the Unicrom in that its upper mids are very relaxed, and even more than the Dell C and Dell CAE and Defiant. And I would even say they're a little too relaxed for my taste. However, it is still one of the more natural sets, probably one of the most natural sets that I've heard around $100. That said, I guess it's hard to compare that with the Unicrom because it's just a completely different approach to the way they tune the upper mids. But I like them both. So you've got two different flavors, but I could probably be perfectly happy with either one. If you want something a little more engaging and with more vocal energy, then you might prefer the Unicrom. If you want something a little more warm and maybe a little more relaxed, then you might go with the Explorer. For me, again, it's kind of a toss-up because I like them both. But I guess the question is, what does that mean for the Unicrom? And to refer back to my original question in my intro, does the Unicrom bring anything new to the table, or is there anything to get excited about? And my answer for both of those questions is yes, and here's why. Again, all of these IEMs that we just talked about these are my top IEMs around this $100 price point. And yes, I'd probably still pick the original Dell C and Dell CAE over the Unicrom, but between the Explorer and the Unicrom, while they do offer, again, two very different tuning flavors, I like them both kind of equally. And I didn't really talk about the Defiant and the SimGod EA500LM, but those are also a couple of other favorites of mine around this $100 price point. And I think while I would probably still put the Unicrom on equal footing as the Defiant in terms of its tuning, which again, the Defiant is tuned very well. So where that puts the Unicrom is not at the top necessarily with the Dell CAE and Dell C, but it is very, very close. And I mean, it does not fall very far behind at all. And that also means it gets my recommendation. So if you are looking for a good budget set, or are just looking for a starting point in the hobby, in my opinion, the Unicrom or any of the other sets that I just mentioned, I think those would be a good place to start. Okay, I think that does it for this review. Please do not forget about the early bird discount on the Unicrom, and also don't forget to check out HiFiGo's back to school sale. And don't forget to enter for a chance to win this, the Pula Unicrom. Again, we are giving away 2 pairs. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you'd be so kind as to please let me know what you think in the comment section. Please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.